It's a cold day in January 22nd, 2016, and Brother Darrell Barnes, would like to just spend a few minutes with you reading in the Word of God. My dad had marked this passage in Joshua in his Bible. His Bible was an old King James version. This is a picture of he and my mother. But remember that these messages and these Bible studies that I'm doing are going to be out of the Life Recovery Bible. So in the comments or the description below the video, just look there and you'll be able to see what page number we are on as you study along with us. Two important things as we proceed through this study. Your man, Brother Barnes, has quite a sinus, chest cold, sore throat problem. And honestly, I didn't even want to do this until I got to feeling better, but I thought, that's kind of taking a lot of things for granted. I'm not going to feel good every day, but you know what? There's something I can learn from the Word of God that can help me and help my brothers and sisters every day. Secondly, the passages that I'm going to read have lots of difficult names and place names. So please bear with my hillbilly pronunciation and wait for the beautiful and wonderful, edifying message that follows. Joshua 14, 6 through 12. A delegation from the tribe of Judah, led by Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, came to Joshua at Gilgal. Caleb said to Joshua, "Remember what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, about you and me when we were at Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land of Canaan. I returned and gave an honest report, but my brothers who went with me frightened people from entering the promised land. For my part, I wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God." So that day Moses solemnly promised me, "The land of Canaan on which you were just walking will be your grant of land and that of your descendants forever, because you wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God." Now, as you can see, the Lord has kept me alive and well as he promised for all these 45 years since Moses made this promise, even while Israel wandered in the wilderness. Today, I am 85 years old. I am as strong now as I was when Moses sent me on that journey, and I can still travel and fight as well as I could then. So give me the hill country that the Lord promised me. You will remember that as scouts we found the descendants of Anak living there in great walled towns. But if the Lord is with me, I will drive them out of the land just as the Lord said. When I looked up the Hebrew pronunciation of Caleb, it's Kalev. And when I looked up the Hebrew pronunciation of Joshua, it is Yehoshua. So the words Caleb and Joshua, the two spies that came back and gave a positive report, they were called by names that we wouldn't recognize. When the 12 spies were sent, only these two guys came back with a report of victory. They didn't forget that God had placed 10 plagues on the Egyptians. They did not forget that God had parted the Red Sea. They did not forget that God had provided manna for millions of people. They did not forget that God had provided water from a rock. Kalev later in this passage said, "Today I am 85 years old and basically I'm ready to rock and roll." Another one of my dad's favorite verses is in Proverbs, and it basically says the splendor of the old is their gray hair. So by the time that he's speaking here, I'm pretty sure he had some splendor. The interesting thing about this is that when he scouted Hebron, there were giants living there. And if you look a little bit further down the page, Hebron is called Kiryat Arba, named after Arba, a great hero of the Anak the son is Anak, and there happened to be 3 sons of Anak and his descendants that were living in the land at this time. So those were the people he was about to move ahead to drive out with the power of the Lord. So for 45 years, Caleb did not forget the promise that Moses had given to him. Hebron, Kiryat Arba is going to be yours. He never stopped thinking about it, even as the children of Israel wandered through the desert, through all the misery, through all the complaining. He kept his eye on the promise that was given him, and he was 85 and he was ready to claim it. Joshua 15:13 through 19. The Lord commanded Joshua to assign some of Judah's territory to Caleb, son of Jephunneh. So Caleb was given the town of Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, which had been named after Anak's ancestor. Caleb drove out the 3 groups of Anakites, the descendants of Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, the sons of Anak. From there he went to fight against the people living in the town of Debir, formerly called Kiryat Sephir. Caleb said, I will give my daughter Aksah in marriage to the one who attacks and captures Kiryat Sephir. Othniel, the son of Caleb's brother Kenaz, was the one who conquered it, so Aksah became Othniel's wife. When Aksah married Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. As she got down off her donkey, Caleb asked her, What's the matter? She said, Give me another gift. You have already given me land in the Negev. Now please give me the springs of water too. So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. So in Joshua 15, Caleb did just what he said he was going to do. He went in there and routed out 3 different crowds of giants, all of these sons of Anak. Afterward, he said, I'll give the hand of my daughter in marriage to the one who takes Debir for me. That happened to be Othniel, his nephew, and so they were married. And I think it's kind of interesting that Aksah, his daughter, who was Othniel's wife, she asked for some special favor from Caleb. She asked for a field, and then she asked for water so that her family could feed themselves and feed their livestock. A couple of things. Caleb was bold. He claimed the vision that he had for his future, but he also was not afraid to ask for help. And he had a lovely relationship with his daughter, and his daughter was a first-class woman because immediately she started thinking about her family. And she thought, well, how can I have a vision for the future for my family? And as she asked her father provided for her. It is a beautiful thing. We trust in the Lord. Joshua 17:14 through 18. The descendants of Joseph came to Joshua and asked, Why have you given us only one portion of land as our homeland when the Lord has blessed us with so many people? Joshua replied, If there are so many of you, and if the hill country of Ephraim is not large enough for you, clear out land for yourselves in the forest where the Perizzites and the Rephaites live. The descendants of Joseph responded, It's true that the hill country is not large enough for us, but all the Canaanites in those lowlands have iron chariots, both those in Bethshan and its surrounding settlements, and those in the valley of Jezreel. They're too strong for us. Then Joshua said to the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, the descendants of Joseph, Since you are so large and strong, you will be given more than one portion. The forests of the hill country will be yours as well. Clear as much of the land as you wish and take possession of its farthest corners, and you will drive out the Canaanites from the valleys too, even though they are strong and have iron chariots. In Joshua 17, there's an interesting story about the descendants of Joseph. Remember that his dad, Joseph's dad, had blessed his sons Manasseh and Ephraim as his descendants. And so as they came into their promised land, they both had pretty large clans of people. Manasseh and Ephraim were very large. I like that they came to Joseph in a peaceful way, asking for their needs to be met. The problem seems to arise in that they thought that Joshua would just hand over something to them. And instead he said, yes, I understand that they have iron chariots. I understand that this is going to be difficult, but I need you to get busy with this task. Get bossy with it. I started this series based on things that my dad had highlighted in his old King James Version. This is the passage that he had actually highlighted, the one about Caleb. But as I read and studied before and after the chapters, this chapter on Oxa and then Manasseh and Ephraim provided some interesting similarities and contrasts that I wanted to look at. So one of the neat things about Joshua 14 is that Caleb did not allow his gray head to get in the way of his victorious future. He did not allow that there were 3 crowds of giants that he was going to have to deal with at 85 years old to claim his future. Oxa, immediately upon getting this husband, she started planning for the future of her family. Wonderful, wonderful relationship between Oxa and her dad, Caleb. That's a beautiful thing. And then lastly, I like this Manasseh and Ephraim passage because they could have come to Joshua in a complaining, miserable way, in a rebellious way. They didn't. They did kind of come asking for a handout, but he did tell them and he encouraged them, you can handle these iron chariots, just get busy with it and take your land. So that, I think, is also one of the big lessons. God has given us strength and health in our bodies, and that is what we can use to have a vision of the past victories that we have. We cannot be afraid of the giants in the future, and we can move on against the iron chariots and give God the victory in everything that we do.